Greetings. I hope you're doing well. If you are not doing well, I hope you're doing better. I want to talk about one argument. It is said like it's one of the greatest thing ever to counter some arguments for the Afro descendants, or let's say black people, who are not into the Abrahamic religion. Usually it is said, well, you guys are following the religion of our former oppressors. Of course, when that is said, it is a reference to the sub-Saharan Arabo Muslim slave trade that preceded the transatlantic European Christian slave trade. And many times it is said they are the ones who gave you your books, your religious books. They are the ones who gave you your religion. And lately, it's been a little while now, I'm hearing people saying, well, are you Kemetic people? You talk that good talk, but it's the same Europeans who gave you the Book of the Dead and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, wow, really? So now you want to make a comparison with some people who are not oppressing black people, and you want to make a comparison with some texts that are written in stone on papyruses. Well, we should say papyri in plural if I'm not mistaken, but let's say on papyruses, just for the sake of understanding, sorry. And they are there. They haven't left anywhere. Some are in museums around the world, but the majority are there in Egypt, in the temples, in so many places. It just didn't go anywhere. So for anybody who had a chance to travel there or to get some documentation about the monuments over there, they knew that it was there. And besides the language, the depictions themselves are quite clear, as long as they are not from the period where ancient Egypt was conquered. Another thing, what I'm at it, sometimes also people want to make the comparison of the slavery or the oppression of black people that was done by the Christians and the Muslims. Some Jews were also involved in the slave trade. And they want to talk about there was slavery in ancient Kemet because we didn't see, we have seen some monuments, some situation between Egyptians and Nubians. But what they don't tell you is that at some point, some Nubians did ally themselves with the Asiatics. Now, when you hear Asiatics, you might be an Asiatic black man or someone familiar with the Asiatic black man. But when you're talking about ancient Egypt, the Asiatics were Caucasian people. And there's many depictions of Asiatics. Actually, I recommend that you watch the video entitled White Semites, Black Awakening. You will see depictions of Asiatics during the time period where ancient Egyptians, indigenous ancient Egyptians were ruling. That is, black people were ruling. Okay? So they did allow with Asiatics. The Asiatics are, in the history of ancient Egypt, the traditional enemies of ancient Egypt. people who were constantly attacking ancient Egypt. And as a matter of fact, at some point, I think it's for about 200 years, but at some point they did conquer ancient Egypt and rule ancient Egypt. And those people were called, today we call them the Hyksos. Hekakasut, or, comes from a combination of Egyptian words, ancient Egyptian words, or Medunet of words. So, once again, they are omitting the fact that some Nubians did ally themselves with some Asiatics. Basically, let's make it broad. Let's make it plain, sorry. Let's make it plain. Let's say I'm in one city and I have a crew of black people. You are in the neighboring next city. You have a crew of black people. And then there's another city, so let's say 3 cities close to each other. And one city is populated by non-blacks. The non-blacks go to the next city and say, let's gang up, let's bang on them together. You and me, we go against them. Now, I happen to be the strongest force, and I defeat the coalition of the blacks for the next city, and who ally themselves with the non-blacks from the other city. And let's say there's depiction of that, and I capture people from both sides. It means that some people will dare years later, centuries later, or millennia later to say that I enslaved and that I oppressed some black people, omitting the fact that they attacked me with some non-black people. That was just for the record. That was just for the record. It's about 7 minutes. Don't want to be too long. I know about the attention span. Take care of yourself. Read a little. Will help you. And what I'm at it, I might as well throw it out there. Because we're talking about texts and who gave you your books. If you have a pastor, ask him about the oldest writings of your religion. And for example, when it comes to Judaism, ask him if those so-called Hebrew texts were found originally in Hebrew, if the oldest or some of the oldest were not actually in Greek, and then they were translated from Greek to the Hebrew. Just ask the pastor. And if he tells you, well, no, we found all the original texts, and no Greek text predates the Hebrew text, well, then for the names, I'm curious, I'd like to know. Take care of yourselves.